YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back. We're a few days in to most NFL training camps. I'm here to go through every single NFL team, giving you the most intriguing camp battle for each team. And I'm, as we go along here, going to predict who I think will win that battle. So this should be a fun one. Really excited about this. You can play along in the comments. Where do you agree, disagree, and maybe if there are camp battles that I left out that you want to talk about. Always talking with you guys on our Twitter. Trying to reach that 10K goal. Please help us out by following that. Full NFL coverage there. We got constant updates, always talking sports in general. So definitely a must follow. Link down below. Smash that like button, subscribe while you're at it. Full NFL coverage. Can't wait for our weekly picks, score predictions, power rankings during the NFL season, and a lot more there too. So hopefully you join us for that. Again, here's our Twitter. You'll find a link down below. Absolute must follow here. Appreciate it if you could check it out. Going in order by division, so we'll start with an obvious one here, the Patriots quarterback camp battle, Cam Newton versus Mac Jones. I think most of the world probably thinks it's Cam Newton, obviously adding a lot, not just the tight ends. I was going to say adding Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. I mean, it's big time. The Patriots are able to run their actual offense, but to add, they had players really across the board here to fill out this roster, better offensive line, better receivers, so that could help Cam Newton play better. Again, most people are predicting Cam Newton, but I'm thinking it's going to be Mac Jones still. I think it should be Mac Jones. I'm pretty close to 50-50 on my prediction. This is definitely a toss-up. I just think they got to go with Mac Jones. They almost have to do it where I think it'll happen because I think they have to do it because, they draft him in the first round and they have confidence in him. But the amount of times that Belichick had to go over and kind of, they had to pull Cam Newton, you're done for the day. There's a lot of moments where you feel bad for Newton, but where the ball really isn't going where his brain is telling himself it's going. I think that's due to several injuries over the last several years, mainly at the end of his Panthers career, I guess. And you hate to see it, but I think this offense, this team is kind of built for Mac Jones. It's the guy that's going to go in there, get the job done, throw accurate balls, make the right read, and, have solid awareness in the pocket. And those things, Mac Jones screams those things, or you can put those things together and it screams Mac Jones, So I think it's got to be Mac Jones. It's definitely up in the air, though, where it goes, but it's definitely an intriguing battle through training camp here. This might be one of my favorite ones because there's a lot of guys here to battle it out. Edge 2, or I guess we can call it 1B because it's a starter opposite of what we expect to be Jerry Hughes for the Buffalo Bills here. They have Mario Addison, the veteran here, AJ Epinesa, who they drafted last year, obviously. He had a big-time career at Iowa. Gregory Rousseau, they drafted in the first round this year. And then Carlos Basham Jr., who they also drafted early this year out of Wake Forest. So there's a long list of guys that could win this battle. This is really a tough one to predict because, it seems like they like the veteran guys. So put Addison with Jerry Hughes. Addison's definitely declining though. Epinesa got a little more playing time as the season went on. Pretty solid, but does he have the speed? I kind of been going with, it's tough it is tough in a way to see the Bills go with a young guy to start. But I think they go at Rousseau here, the first-round pick from Miami, and they took him in the first round for a reason. At the end of the day, the Bills, they've been getting pressure, but they haven't really been getting the quarterback down. And Rousseau, 2 years ago, the last time we seen him play, he just got to the quarterback found different ways. Maybe the technique wasn't pretty all the time, but he's such a versatile, talented athlete, athletic, lengthy pass rusher. I think they just want a guy that just goes in there, gets the job done, gets after the quarterback. Basham, it kind of falls in the same category. He's just got loads of production over the years. Be interesting to see if Basham starts over Rousseau because he's a little more polished. Epinesa and Basham pretty much in the same boat there, same style pass rushers. Maybe they start week one with the veterans. They go Addison. I wouldn't really agree with it, but I'm going to go at Rousseau, and they liked him a lot, and they liked him enough to take him in the first round. So I'm going to go with him, but that – your guess is as good as mine here on this one. It's definitely intriguing to say the least. Next, we got the Jets. I'm going to go running back. This one's interesting. I actually feel pretty confident about this one at this point. But they bring in Tevin Coleman, who's a fantastic runner, hard, tough runner, but has the injury concern. They draft Michael Carter. I think that was a great pick. Catches the ball well out of the backfield, downfield, shifty. After the line of scrimmage, he just knows he knows which lane. He knows how to find the right lane to hit that home run. They do have Michael P. Ryan's a solid young running back, obviously. But I'm actually going to go with the rookie here. So back to 3 in a row, I'm picking the rookie, actually. I'm going to go with Michael Carter. And if you maybe a couple weeks ago, I probably would have answered Tevin Coleman, actually. But I hear rave reports about Michael Carter. They got big-time plans for him. And day 1 of training camp, he was out there as the starter. I mean, we even got Trevor Lawrence of the Jags over there. Obviously, he's going to start, but we even have him kind of being the backup on day 1. So we got this guy Michael Carter, who's a rookie, and he's already the guy. I think they're gonna pass the ball. I mean, that's they're gonna pass the crap out of the ball this year. We're gonna see some spread looks probably. So I think it helps that you have a pass catching back in there. So I think they really like Michael Carter. I think he really fits their plan here. So I'm actually gonna go with him to get that role. Week 1. We're gonna see though. The Dolphins, this is an interesting. Pretty much every team has one position, so this is 2 positions. But the reason I did that for the Dolphins is because they're so interchangeable, and we need to pick 2 guys here that really could play any spot. Robert Hunt was the right tackle. There's rumors about him moving to guard, and I graded him as a guard coming out of Louisiana. They draft Liam Eichenberg, who played left tackle, but he kind of felt like a right tackle, and there's some thought that he could play guard. DJ Fluker has experience at guard and right tackle over the course of his career, so we need any of these guys can play guard, any of these guys can play right tackle. We need 2 of them because I think the rest of the line is pretty much set. I think we start with Robert Hunt's got a starting job. Robert Hunt's definitely got a starting job. It just really depends on where they're going to play him. Do they continue playing where he played last year, right tackle, or you play him at guard? I think he has Pro Bowl potential at guard. I'm kind of sticking with. I really like him at guard, so I think they could see that as well. And I think they drafted Eichenberg where they did. They liked him a lot to play him at right tackle. So I'm going to go that route. DJ Fluker. It's kind of weird seeing him on a team not starting, but he has been a little underwhelming the last few seasons. So it really shouldn't be that shocking. It felt like that they brought him in for insurance. Maybe they don't want to go with Eichenberg too early. They went with Austin Jackson right off the bat. So this is kind of where my head's at. But again, it could be Robert Hunt at right tackle. And if they said Robert Hunt was for sure starting at right tackle, I'd actually guess DJ Fluker playing that right guard spot, potentially left guard as well. Solomon Kinley's going to get a starting guard job, obviously. So based on where they put Hunt, like I said, Hunt starting, in my opinion, he's got to be a lock. It really depends on where they put him first for the rest of this. So definitely interesting because it's kind of 2 spots but using the same guys. So pretty cool. Washington football team here. Right tackle is very interesting. A couple weeks ago, maybe a week ago, I would have said guaranteed, or not guaranteed, but I was feeling pretty confident about Cornelius Lucas, and they liked him a lot last year. They view him as kind of that swing tackle at that right tackle position. But he's on the COVID list, giving reps to a guy like Samuel Cosme, the rookie from Texas, 2nd-round pick. Sadiq Charles I actually liked at LSU. It's going to be tough for him to win a job here. He might be kind of just important depth, at more of the left tackle spot and a guard spot. There's some upside there with guard. And he's a good guy to have for depth because he can play. You probably step in as a really good backup if you need him to. Left tackle, right tackle, left guard, right guard. So that's really a good guy to have here. So I don't think he has a shot for sure. But I think it's more between Cornelius Lucas and Samuel Cosme. Cosme getting the reps mainly because Lucas is out, but could that win him the job? Could he wow the staff and they could realize he's ready now? That's definitely a possibility. I'm still going to go with Cornelius Lucas, though, here because, again, I think they like him. He was impressive last year. I think they like the idea of him as a solid swing tackle, the right tackle position. But back to Cosme is another big piece here because, remember, they brought in Charles Leno, who's had a pretty solid career. It's not a long-term answer. We all know that. Like, he's a left tackle for now. I think they drafted Cosme with the plan to replace Leno after 1 year. They probably prefer Cosme at the left tackle position. Who knows, though? Maybe Cosme is the future right tackle. Lucas ends up being the future left. It's definitely possible, but that's kind of my thoughts on where their heads are at right now. But training camp could definitely change that, and that's what makes it get on this list, I guess, because things can change because of training camp. The Giants right tackle, Nate Solder and Matt Part. This is definitely an interesting one. I keep saying they got to go with Solder because they kept him for a reason. I know they restructured him, but they really kept him around for a reason. Realistically, I keep mentioning this too. Andrew Thomas could play right tackle if he plays right tackle, which he has experience at. If he plays right tackle, it's a lock that Nate Solder is starting at left. So that's something to watch out for too. I just think Andrew Thomas is playing left tackle. That is my prediction there. I think it's almost everyone's prediction. But the right tackle, Solder. That's the problem here. Solder played left tackle pretty much all of his whole career. So do they feel comfortable playing right tackle? They have that young second-year player, Matt Part, there that could play. He has been a right tackle for them since he came in, but it's only been a year plus now. This is interesting. This is definitely one I've been changing my mind on because I say, you brought in, you brought in Solder and brought him back for a reason, and you're still rolling with this Daniel Jones experiment, and you want it to work so bad. You're still giving it a run. You built everything around it, basically, besides offensive line. You have some young pieces on the offensive line, but you didn't really add more this offseason to quarterback one to the offensive line because you believe in that group. So that kind of argues both sides. I'm kind of arguing with myself here. I all of a sudden I got this feeling, and I think most of the fans have been on the stance for a while that they go Matt Part, and I'm at the point where I'm predicting that I'm kind of 50-50 because they brought Solder back for a reason. Your offensive line will be better today, even though Solder struggled last time we seen him. Your offensive line will be better today with Solder out there with Andrew Thomas, in my opinion. Honestly, in my opinion, which I feel strongly about this, your best tackle group would be Solder left tackle, Andrew Thomas right tackle. I'm fine flipping that though, which it could be. But they seem to be very stubborn and insisting on developing Daniel Jones and the young guys in the offensive line. They didn't really want to get better across the offensive line because they wanted to develop them. They feel like they can get better by default. Understandable in a way. But if you really want this Daniel Jones experiment to work, I think you could have focused on the offensive line a little more. So I think they're going to insist on their development here, and they're going to bank on Matt Part stepping up here. So that's why my latest prediction is that. So we'll see if that experiment works out. They built so well around everything. They are banking on so much progression in the quarterback, offensive line position, which are connected. It's a gamble. It's a gamble. If it pays off, they're going to look genius. If it doesn't, people need to be fired. They absolutely need to be fired because it's a ginormous risk, really. So that's something I can't wait to watch to see how it unfolds. So I'm hoping for the best for the Giants there. Cowboys next. Free safety. DAMONTAE KAZEE, they bring him in a couple months ago. They bring Malik Hooker in. They're going to sign one. They signed KAZEE, who played under Dan Quinn's system there. Now, very recently, they bring in Malik Hooker again and sign him. This makes an interesting free safety competition battle here because, they originally chose KAZEE, but now they're like, wait a second, we better grab Malik Hooker here. So that's interesting. Both of them playmaking free safeties. They're very athletic. They know how to attack the ball, get their hands on the ball. But they have that in common, but they also have something negative in common. They both have pretty serious injury concern. They just cannot stay healthy. So this is one I can change my mind on any given moment on the prediction. It's really 50-50 because they chose KAZEE over Hooker originally. So that kind of sides towards KAZEE. Dan Quinn is defensive coordinator. I think he might choose this guy. That kind of signs with KAZEE. But what is the reason they recently brought in Hooker? They feel like we actually need this guy. I think there's some upside here. I think he could be a starter. We feel good about his health now. Or is it just because maybe he just became cheaper? That could be the case as well. So I think Hooker can be better than DAMONTAE KAZEE. I thought they chose KAZEE in the first place for a reason. He also has experience with Dan Quinn and his system. So I'm actually going to go with KAZEE there with him because of that, but it's 50-50. Your guess is as good as mine here, so it's going to be very interesting. Again, I think Hooker can be better. They both have injury concern. I think Hooker's been a little bit of a liability in terms of tackling sometimes, so that could side with KAZEE as well, but Hooker's such a good playmaker. That's going to be a fun one. Who's going to be paired with Donovan Wilson, who was kind of a breakout player in a way last year, so excited to watch that. It's pretty interesting how they just ended up with both those guys too. But again, I'm picking KAZEE to win. Who do I think overall is better? I'm actually going to go with Hooker there. So we will see. Eagles, they're definitely a very intriguing one here because we know Brandon Graham's going to start on one side in terms of the edge rusher, and they're deep over here with their edge rushers. Really good room, really good rotation. They bring in Ryan Kerrigan, who's been a fantastic pass rusher his whole career. Josh Sweat's my guy. I was really high on him out of Florida State. It was just about staying healthy. He was healthy last year, and he looked pretty good. He's flashy. He's very solid. Derek Barnett, who's been a little underwhelming. I graded him as a 3-4 defensive end. But he does fit at the 4-3 defensive end role of the Eagles, and he is solid. He can help stop the run as well. And that, I'm somewhat confident on this one. And I'm gonna go with Kerrigan. They didn't pay him much at all, so it isn't like they need to start him or anything like that. I mean, they're gonna start the best player anyways. I think some people look and he didn't do much last year. Well, Washington was getting prepared for the future. They wanted to get that young unit going, so they didn't play Kerrigan as much. They were playing Sweat and Chase Young, obviously, more. Kerrigan still got something left in the tank, I'll tell you that for sure. Playing opposite of Brandon Graham's fantastic idea. But then going into the other guys, Josh Sweat, athletic pass rusher off the edge, speed rusher, got a pretty good bend off the outside. And Derek Barnett, I think, is a little better in stopping the run. So those feel like rotation pieces there for obvious reasons. Sweat, more of the third down pass situation. Barnett, a little mixture of both, but he'll stop the run for a defensive end. He could get after the quarterback. Kerrigan is much like Brandon Graham, kind of more of the total package guy. So I think we're going to see a pretty good split. I'm going to say Brandon Graham gets the most snaps, Ryan Kerrigan next, Josh Sweat next, Derek Barnett. I think we see a pretty good split between all of them, really. But look at Kerrigan and Sweat. I think pretty close. Sweat's a very solid pass rusher, in my opinion, getting better, a lot of upside. But it makes sense to go Graham and Kerrigan. I'm really excited about this Eagles pass rush, not just the starters, obviously, here. It's going to be fun. Ravens next. Receiver 1 I'm looking at. The number 1 receiver, Marquise Brown, Hollywood, Sammy Watkins, Rashad Bateman there. Should be a pretty good battle. Hollywood Brown's been obviously underwhelming. Hasn't really lived up to the hype, but he still has that big playability. Sammy Watkins has experience being number 1 receiver, better as a number 2. But the Ravens really haven't had a receiver, like kind of in a way, a polished receiver like this. And they draft first round receiver who I like a lot, Rashad Bateman, a do-it-all guy, can play outside, play in the slot. I think he's an instant impact type of guy. I definitely think they should go Rashad Bateman, and I was kind of leaning towards they will, but now I'm kind of they go Hollywood Brown as kind of the number 1 receiver, which realistically they're going to have multiple number 1s out there, but the number 1. The idea of Hollywood Brown, is still there, still very much alive. It's a guy that I hear, he's looking better. Some rave reports there, and he's a guy that could dominate practice. Where this is the guy. He just got to put it together on the game field, on the field there. So I think he is the number 1 guy going in. I think as the season unfolds, by the end of the year, I think Rashad Bateman's going to feel like their best receiver. My opinion there. He is a rookie. Rookies always have things to work on. There was one thing on his tape. He had kind of a false step off the line. I think easily fixable, but maybe that's going to take a little more time. But I don't really think so. It's just a possibility. I think he's a guy that could make an instant impact because of his route running, because of his versatility as a receiver there. So, but I think they view Hollywood as their guy right away, which really isn't a problem at all. Time to step up, though. Time to catch the ball a little more consistently. Cleveland, cornerback 2. We know we got Newsome was a first-round pick, and then Greedy Williams was a second-round pick a year ago. So we have a young battle here for the spot opposite of Denzel Ward. And this is a pretty good one, actually, because Greedy Williams is a solid corner. He's a solid corner. He's a good playmaker, knows how to attack the ball. And Newsome, he's a rookie. Do you want to throw the rookie in there? That's kind of the big question. But differences here, Newsome is actually, I actually compared him a little bit like Denzel Ward. I'm going to go with him. Not really for those reasons, but I like the way Ward comes up and isn't afraid to tackle. He's not the biggest corner either. He's kind of a feisty corner, not afraid to tackle, can tackle. I think that's where Greedy Williams is kind of lacking. They bring in Newsome, who attacks the ball, whether it's a pass or it's underneath. He wants to take. He's very similar to Ward in those ways, and I think that's kind of what they're pulling for, that style of guy. And they drafted in the first round for a reason. So I think they go that route. it's an interesting one because Greedy Williams is hyped up because he's a damn good corner at LSU. So he could be that playmaker they need back there. But so they kind of can get two different style corners out there at once. But yeah, I'm pretty confident they go with Newsome here. Distracted with potential news coming in, but yeah, nothing big. Okay, but yeah, going with Newsome for the Browns and Steelers. Yeah, offensive line's gonna look a lot different. They definitely got a battle for their center position. Though I think the rest of the spots are pretty much set. But at the same time, some of these guys could play guard if they really needed them to. So pretty good to have that flexibility there. J.C. Hassenauer, which I think most people were actually predicting to get the job. But they have B.J. Finney, who they got rid of and then realized they wanted him back, and he has some experience as well. So that could side towards him. And then you got the rookie Kendrick Green from Illinois. But this could be a little bold here, but I'm going to go with the rookie. I'm going to go Kendrick Green. I think you notice the style of offensive lineman blockers that they're bringing in, and it's a different style. They are really focused on running the ball better. They actually, the offensive line in general is probably worse, but it's more for pass protection. They actually could be better in terms of run blocking. They got some nasty run blockers in there, and there's a reason for that. They want to run the ball better, and they drafted Kendrick Green because he fits that. This guy was a polished run blocker, whether it was from the guard or the center position, and he kind of fits what they're trying to do. They're trying to run the ball to Najee Harris. They're trying to give some different looks in terms of scheme, power runs, zone runs, a little bit of a mixture, try to throw some teams off. Kendrick Green fits that. He fits that. So I think it makes all the sense in the world that they go with him, and there's a reason they drafted him because he fits that perfectly. So might be bold to some, but I'm going to go with Kendrick Green there. So, and again, he could play guard pretty well too. So just needs to get better as a pass protector, but you don't have to worry about that too much as a center for your center. You just need him to be a damn good run blocker, and I think Kendrick Green could do that right off the bat. Next up, we got the Bengals. The Bengals didn't have a bunch of big ones. You could look at the linebacker position. How many will they have on the field to start? Probably 2 in terms of off the ball. So I thought about that one as well. Drew Sample, young tight end who ended up playing quite a bit last year. CJ Uzomah, who was their guy going into last year, but he got hurt. Remember, he had that season-ending injury, so that resulted in Sample being the guy. So what is it now? Do you go back to your original tight end one, or did Sample kind of earn that for himself with his play last year? So this one's really up in the air. They got a good young group going, with the quarterback position, the receiver. So I think they kind of continue with that. As you can tell, I'm kind of on the fence. I can switch my mind on this pretty easily, but I'm going to go with Drew Sample, and they keep riding with him. I think he fits. Tight end's not that big in this offense. We're going to see some spread looks. We're going to see Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins out there at the same time, a ton. There's still a lot of teams in the NFL that you'll only see 2 receivers out there for the most part. Not the Bengals. We're going to see 3 of them at the same time. So tight end isn't the biggest thing for this team, but it's good to have kind of a sneaky young guy here that helps get the job done there. So I'm going to go with Sample. That's definitely one to watch out for, though. Bears got to go quarterback. Could have went running back as well because they got a pretty deep running back room, but we know the starter's going to be Dave Montgomery, obviously. RB2, we could have discussed a little bit. Damian Williams, Tariq Cohen. They did draft Khalil Herbert, but I think it's really between Damian Williams and Tariq Cohen there for that second spot. Could we see them use one of those guys? Both those guys rotation as a kind of a receiver type guy there, almost like a Kamara type back, poor man's in a way possibility. But we got to focus on the quarterback here. Andy Dalton versus Justin Fields. Justin Fields has a lot more to his game. Overall more talented for sure. I think he fits. You seen at the end of last year, the Bears running more West Coast style, play action, bootleg. Fields ran a ton of that at Ohio State. It worked. I think he makes defenses fear him because on those bootlegs, somebody's got to come up in case Fields runs. But if they do that, somebody's going to be open downfield. So it's kind of like you got to worry about so many different things because of his legs. But I love that he wants to throw first, and he can really air it out. So it's kind of perfect for that style of offense that the Bears really changed to late last year. And I think they would be much better. But Justin Fields, you can't have too much expectations. There's a lot of expectations, high expectations out there. He's going to have some struggling moments if he does play right away. but I think they're way more talented with Justin Fields out there. So I would start in week 1, but I don't think they do that. It really shouldn't be a surprise that I'm picking Dalton to win this job. I guess we could say, because I think they kind of already decided. I think they keep mentioning they want to kind of go to the Mahomes route, which I wish they wouldn't really, maybe the coaching staff isn't really saying that, but I wish people would kind of lay off that, just, don't really compare that situation. You use your own, just tell us what your own situation is and how it's going. But and I guess the coaching staff kind of is. But I think they go Dalton. I think they play it safe here. But I do think they would be better with Fields. Not that I think he'd be a flawless rookie or anything. I think he would have his mistakes as a rookie, but I think it would be a dangerous team. I think I'd probably pick them to sneak into playoffs with Justin Fields. Not too many people picking on to make the playoffs right now, and maybe that's with Dalton in there. But at the same time, the tackle situation, offensive tackles, is a little rough. Do you want to throw Fields into that? It's hard to have those rollout plays when you're struggling at that position. So maybe there's a good reason for it. We will see, but it's definitely an interesting one here. Talked about a lot, the Bears quarterback situation. Lions next, go cornerback 2. Could call it 1B because it's the starter I'm looking for, opposite of Jeff Okudah. Hoping he steps up this year. Amani Oruwariye, young player. First half of the year last year, I thought he was looking fantastic. Second half of the year struggled a little bit. But he's got upside. He's got potential. Was a starter last year. They had Quentin Dunbar, who started for the Seahawks, and then he missed the second half of the year. It was interesting that the Seahawks defensively played a lot better the second half of the year. I don't think it had anything to do with Dunbar. It just kind of could look like that, but I don't think so. And I like the pick of Fatu Melifonwu, too, a very athletic, big corner there. I think he's got a bright future. May not start right away because he's kind of more of a raw, high potential guy. This is a tough one, too, because Dunbar, it's mainly Oruwariye versus Dunbar. They may want to go with more of the veteran, more polished veteran, but Oruwariye has some promise. He showed that last year, and I think, I know it's a new coaching staff, but kind of taking him out, I think you could kind of stump that a little bit, stunt the growth a little bit. So I'm going to go with him, but this one's interesting. It definitely could be Dunbar there. We'll see who plays in the slot as well, but it's going to be interesting to see who they play with Okudah there, and you could go the young duo. I wouldn't be against going Melifonwu. I just don't think they do it. That'd be pretty cool to see Okudah, Melifonwu out there, a bright future if they kind of got those guys going right off the bat. Next up, we got the Vikings, cornerback 2. This is one I'm back and forth on too. Cam Dantzler. Last year, they drafted Jeff Gladney in the first round. They drafted Cam Dantzler in the third round, and Dantzler ended up being more of the guy there. He actually had a pretty solid rookie season for sure for a third-round pick, and Gladney kind of took over as a slot corner, played slot, and then he would slide outside. They needed him to. Pretty versatile. He had some off-the-field issues this offseason, so it almost removes him from the conversation, but still they have, in terms of his talent, they have high hopes there. It's really between Cam Dantzler, second-year player that was fantastic last year for a rookie, could definitely improve. You still worry about the deep speed. And then Bashaud Breeland, who I like a lot. I always thought he was underrated. Wants to come up and hit you. Sound tackler. Experience in man coverage. I think could be even better in the Vikings kind of heavy cover 2 scheme. It simplifies it a little more for him. So I think he'd be pretty good opposite of Patrick Peterson here. And I've been saying, Breeland's just, as much as I like the idea of Dantzler, I thought it was a damn good pick at the time, and he played better than expected last year. As much as I like him, Breeland's just a better corner right now. Right now, he is the better corner. So I was kind of leaning towards Breeland, and I wasn't really coming off that. But now, we're just in the training camp. I think it's day 2 for the Vikings. But Dantzler's out there with Peterson running the ones. That they have a lot of hope for that duo. It's just so I'm almost going towards Dantzler now. But to me, I like Breeland in that system. And he's definitely the better corner right now. Could they use all 3? Could they put one in the slot? They have Gladney. They have Mackenzie Alexander. They got Harrison Hand. They got some options for the slot as well. They rotate corners. So I think at the end of the day, I think Breeland and Dantzler will probably get the same amount of snaps pretty much every week. But I'm feeling my prediction, in terms of my prediction, who I'm feeling, I'm thinking Dantzler right now. He started last year. He played all those reps, and maybe you don't want to slow it down his progression, taking him out, but they want that defense to win right now at the same time. It's definitely an interesting one. So can't wait to see how it unfolds. But they're in a much better situation than they were last year, so that's kind of the good news there for them. Packers, receiver 2, the starting receiver next to Davante Adams. Got a long list of players here. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who's kind of been that receiver 2. Deep threat, obviously. Allen Lazard, who started to take off a little more last year. Kind of a deep ball guy as well. Both Valdes-Scantling and Allen Lazard kind of need to catch the ball a little more consistently. More of Valdes-Scantling. They had Devin Funchess, who's kind of that Lazard type of player. And they had him last year. He opted out. We're going to see him this year. He's kind of that style player. Maybe people view him as more polished, better than Lazard, so maybe he can take over that role. They traded for Randall Cobb. Aaron Rodgers had to have Randall Cobb. He has experience with Rodgers with this offense, so that gives him a pretty good shot. Front office says they probably weren't going to trade for him if it wasn't for Rodgers, so where is that front office coaching staff going to put him on the depth chart? And they draft Amari Rodgers, which I love the pick. I think he's a sure thing to be... I think he's a safe slot receiver. He's going to give you what you need there. So I would love to see him in action more. But tough for him to get on the field at Randall Cobb there. This one's a really tough one. Because they traded for Randall Cobb for a reason. Rodgers is going to push to have him out there most of the time. But he's up there in age. I think you do got to limit him a little bit. Part of me wants to go Randall Cobb. I still got to go Marquez Valdes-Scantling. He's been their receiver too. He gets open in their scheme, that in their system. The deep ball is such a big part of that. Lazard was starting to take over once they got him going. He was starting to take over a little more, but it seems like, even though Scantling kind of lets them down at times, it just seems like he is their guy for the receiver too. So you could argue any of these guys, because again, Funchess is, like I said, Lazard got going, he could take over, but Funchess is that Lazard type player, just a little more polished, a little more expectations out of him. They trade for Randall Cobb. Rodgers is going to push to have him out there. Amari Rodgers might be your all-around big play, from the slot guy. I would love to see him out there. So you could debate almost anything here. So it's definitely interesting to watch. I think they're pretty even split. Somebody's not going to make the team. I'm just realizing that now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, all those guys can make the team. So counting Adams, they probably all make the team. But interesting. I think bringing in Cobb definitely makes things interesting here. But I think Cobb isn't the same what he was, but at the end of the day, they get better adding him for sure. Colts next, edge 2. So the starter opposite of Kwity Paye. I would like to think Kwity Paye is going to start. Remember, they drafted Dayo Odeyingbo, who I like out of Vanderbilt, but he tore his Achilles and was that late January working out. He's got a future. Paye and Odeyingbo, that's future pass rush right there. But I don't think he's going to play this year. Kamoko Toure, who had a lot of upside. I liked him a lot out of Rutgers, and it seems like when he's healthy, not too often, but it seems like they want to push this. They want him in there because he's got a lot of upside. They believe in him a lot, so understandable. It's just a big if he's healthy. Al-Quadin Muhammad, who's smaller name guy, but he actually showed up for them. He was getting a good amount of reps last year. Especially down the stretch, and I thought he was giving them some good football there. And then Isaac Rochelle, who they bring in, who's debatable on if you play him inside or out. I kind of view him as a 3-4 end, but the Colts had Danico Autry, who is kind of that style of guy, and actually going to go play more of a 3-4 end role this year at the Titans. But Autry actually got their most snaps in terms of their edge rusher, and he was kind of a guy that's really not going to play outside the tackle. He got their most snaps. Justin Houston got their second most snaps. They're both gone. They could bring Justin Houston back, but Autry was actually a pretty big piece, and they liked having that guy that can play over the tackle or inside the tackle as their defensive end. So are they looking for that style of guy to kind of take a spot? Is Kwity Paye that style of guy? Because he played inside sometimes, but he's so athletic that he could rush on the outside. So this is really up in the air here. Do they want to kind of mimic or create a future Autry with Rochelle? It's definitely possible. Tyquan Lewis could be that guy, because remember, he played inside Ohio State. He's got some upside. This is really up in the air. The good thing is, they're not. It's not too sexy on who they have as their starters. I do like Paye. It's a kind of a big name rookie, but they got some pretty good rotation here. They got guys after this as well. Benogu, but he hasn't really. I thought he was more of a 3-4 edge rusher. I was confused about that pick at the time. I could change my mind at any given moment here. I've been saying Teray because it feels like when he's healthy, they insist on him, which makes sense, you know. But I think they let those guys go, mainly Autry, because and they saw something in LQ Muhammad here because he was stepping up. Even the playoff game, he was stepping up. So I think he starts. I don't know if he gets the most snaps opposite of Kwity Paye, though. I think the rotation will be key. I wouldn't, again, they could be mimicking in a way the Rochelle Autry thing. Kind of feels like the poor man style of that, but I wouldn't really agree with him putting him in right away starting. Again, Lewis got a lot of snaps last year. Was that because was Teray hurt? Was that why? It's really up in the air. I'm really curious here. Your guess is as good as mine here. Who they go with? I've been going Teray, like I said, but I'm going to switch to Muhammad there. I think they liked what they saw from him, and that was, maybe a reason they moved on from Danico Autry. Possibility there, but we will see. Next, Titans slot corner, definitely an interesting one. They bring in Janoris Jenkins to play outside corner. They draft Caleb Farley to play outside corner. They have Kevin Byard at free safety. They have Amani Hooker at strong safety. And the reason I mentioned the safeties here is because Amani Hooker could play slot corner and Elijah Molden could play strong safety. I just don't think that's I don't think that's the case, but that's something to look out for. That's a possibility. I think Amani Hooker plays strong safety, and they were able to move on from Vaccaro because they saw something in that. And, he was starting to get just as many reps anyways there. So I think slot corner is the battle here. Christian Fulton, who was a pretty high-profile pick for them and definitely has some upside. I heard some good things about him from the coaching staff. But he does feel like an outside corner, but they have Jenkins and Caleb Farley, so that makes it interesting. Elijah Molden played a bit of slot, played a bit of strong, and some free safety at Washington. Was a pretty good playmaker. I like his instincts, reading the quarterback, attacking the ball. Breon Borders got some solid reps actually for them last year, but they were a little thin on the position at the same time. So this is interesting because Fulton's a guy, that talent, that high-profile name from LSU a year ago. He's got to get the reps to continue to get better. But I do feel like he's an outside corner, and Elijah Molden is a plug-and-play guy at the slot position, I think. Again, instincts, can cover from the slot, can read the quarterback. I guess lacking a little bit of athleticism, but I think they go with Molden there. I think he starts in the slot. That leaves Fulton on the bench, could rotate at the outside corner spot. So that's kind of what makes it tough there. But they're thin on it last year. They're a little better, a little deeper, obviously. The two starters are about to be new, so that's a good sign for the Titans. Jags, I'm going to go linebacker. The Jags really don't have this big battle, in my opinion. Running back's not that big. I think James Robinson is a running back. ETN's kind of that hybrid type player. It really depends on exactly what they run. It sounds like they're going to go with a multiple defense. We'll see. But Joe Schobert versus Damian Wilson next to Miles Jack. Miles Jack's obviously going to start. Schobert's got that big contract, had a pretty solid career, but this defense, it seems like they're going for athleticism, straight athleticism, versatility at the same time. Wilson's going to beat Schobert big time in those categories. And Wilson played pretty well for the Chiefs. They let him go. That was interesting. I thought he was like the only player that played well in the Super Bowl. Actually, I thought he had some big time plays. So they want more of the athlete out there. So they could go Wilson for that reason. It's just hard to not go Schobert at this point. So it's just kind of my gut there. I think they're going to go Schobert, but look out for that battle throughout the year on how many reps they get, and could Schobert be replaced because of the lack of athleticism there? Possibility. Next, Texans, running back, David Johnson, Mark Ingram, Phillip Lindsay. They got a pretty deep group. I like Phillip Lindsay here. I think he can be big time for them. Running game, passing game as well. But I still think, this one's not too hard for me. I still think they roll with David Johnson. It's interesting, though, because they bring in a new staff. New staff immediately brings in Ingram and Lindsay. So it almost says we don't really love Johnson that much. But I still think he's the guy, more complete guy. Feels like a starting running back there, early down back. But they're going to split pretty evenly. A big part of their plan. They're going to give these guys reps. It's almost like showcasing for the rest of the league, a tryout for the rest of the league. They want teams to sign these guys. I'm sure they want to keep one, but they want teams to sign these guys so they potentially get a load of compensatory picks because they're kind of in a rebuild stage there. So it makes sense. It makes sense to me. But I think they roll with David Johnson, but I think a pretty even split. I'd say Lindsay is probably the next most in terms of reps there. Mark Ingram, because he's getting up there in age, we'll have a good close in terms of the reps, snaps, but probably third. But who knows? He could end up starting. That's definitely a possibility. Next up, the Saints. Cornerback 2, you may be surprised not to see quarterback up here. I voiced my opinion on this a lot. I think it's Jameis Winston. I think that was the plan all along. I think it's important to them to use Taysom Hill as a weapon, especially right now with, even though he's not a receiver really, but even though now that they have Michael Thomas out, Deontay Harris is a situation now. They're thin at the receiver position. Tight end, they're kind of relying on development. So I think it's key to have Taysom Hill as kind of a weapon. So I think it's going to be Jameis Winston out there at quarterback. Cornerback 2 is interesting, though, because, they lose Janoris Jenkins. They bring back Patrick Robinson. Paulson Adebo, who they draft. I like him as a playmaker for sure. Tackling could develop a little bit there. And they bring in Brian Poole, who's been known as a solid slot corner. So why do I have him here as outside corner 2? Well, they have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who is kind of their slot guy, a pretty good one as well. Are they really going to play Poole there? Were they going to put Chauncey Gardner-Johnson? I don't know if they're going to move that around too much. I think it's pretty bold because he might not even make the team, and he's not even an outside corner, hasn't really been. But I'm going to go Brian Poole. I think he's the most talented guy here, and they did bring him in for a reason. I think they're going to start him outside. Patrick Robinson, to me, hasn't been reliable in my opinion. I think it's a good guy to have in depth. I do like Adebo. I think he's a hell of a playmaker, especially down the field. He's pretty good reading the quarterback, reading the receiver at the same time. So he's got some upside there. I just don't know if they're going to plug and play this guy. I think he has some work to do. They like the tough physical corners. So I do think they want to further develop him a little bit before throwing him in there. But I wouldn't be against starting him. I think that gets some playmaking ability out there. I think they're going to go Brian Poole to start the year. I actually think that. But maybe it's a little bold because he just joined the team and he's been a slot corner. So we will see. We will see. The Buccaneers next. They don't have too many battles. We got to dig deep here. Receiver 4, Scotty Miller's been that guy. Tyler Johnson's second-year guy, who's a fantastic receiver out of Minnesota. I thought very highly of him. And had some pretty good moments last year. Just not a whole lot of them, but he was a rookie. And Jalen Darden, who I loved out of North Texas, this guy's a freak. He's a stud. Route runner, gets a separation, home run hitter after. He was responsible for majority of North Texas, like an insane amount of North Texas offenses. So, this can be a plug-and-play type weapon for sure. So, they got options. I'm going to go Scotty Miller, though. I'm going to go Scott Miller here. I think he started developing a little more, with that Tom Brady offense. So, and it's a guy that they trust inside or outside. I do think that helps as well. So, I'm going to go with him. But Tyler Johnson, second year, could step up. Darden's a dangerous weapon there, so another guy to watch out for. But it's pretty interesting. They use their receivers, so it's definitely important. Panthers next, tight end 1. They signed Dan Arnold, had a pretty big year from the Cardinals. He goes from a team that didn't really use tight end a whole lot, even though they did feature Dan Arnold a bit, but a team that runs a lot of spread, to the Panthers, who the same thing. They don't run a tight end a whole lot. They're going to spread it out a little bit, multiple receivers out there. So he could fit that role. They have Ian Thomas, who was more of their tight end 1 before, and they bring in Tommy Tremble from Notre Dame, who's a fantastic blocking tight end with upside as a pass catcher. This is actually an interesting one. This is actually a very interesting one. First glance, first thought, most people will stick with this. They would go Dan Arnold because they paid him. He's got some upside as a pass catcher. I'm kind of on the fence at the same time. I'm looking. In terms of the starter, I'm actually looking at Tommy Tremble here. I'm actually going to go with Tommy Tremble. I'm kind of back and forth on Dan Arnold versus Tommy Tremble, but why? It's because they're going to have multiple receivers out there. We're going to see them with DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, and Terrace Marshall, David Moore. We're going to see them with these guys out there a ton. 3 receivers out there a ton at least. And I think when they're when you're not spreading it out, you want to use Christian McCaffrey. You want to run the ball. You want to run the ball effectively. And that's where Tommy Tremble comes in. This guy's a dominant run blocker and also very sneaky as a pass catcher. So I think they didn't realize they were going to get Tommy Tremble in the draft. I actually thought he was going to end up going a little earlier. I know of other teams that were trying to get him. The Panthers, it was kind of sneaky to other teams. They were not expecting that because they weren't valuing tight ends before that. They valued Tommy Tremble pretty high there. I think they have a plan. I think it's mainly for the running game here. So it's pretty bold maybe, but I'm going to go that route. But Dan Arnold will be using the passing game. Falcons safeties, not just free or strong because they're pretty interchangeable here. We need to figure out who's playing strong and who's playing free. You look at Dron Harmon, probably more of a strong safety. Eric Harris, probably more of a free safety. Richie Grant played both at Central Florida. He man-covered some guys in the slot, kind of looked more like a strong safety. Came up, made plays, in that range, and then played pretty well as a playmaker in a free safety position. They drafted Jalen Hawkins last year, which is a bit of a surprise pick out of California, but he definitely got to consider him as well. I see a lot of people saying Richie Grant at strong safety. It's definitely a possibility. Like I said, he played there, and I did like the way he kind of, he covered tight ends and guys from the slot, but from what I've watched, Richie Grant, to me, this guy was not worth the pick in terms of a strong safety. He was worth that pick as a free safety. He's very rangy, very good tracking the ball in the back end. To me, this guy is a free safety here. So that can play strong, so you can change it up a little bit. That's fantastic. I like him at free. I'm predicting him there because of that. And so Eric Harris was more of just a true free safety, so that kind of removes him. We're going for more of a strong safety after they brought in Dron Harmon for a reason. So I'm going to go Richie Grant free, Dron Harmon strong. But I think it starts with Richie Grant. If they play him at strong, I think we're going to see Eric Harris start at free safety. That's my opinion there. So definitely interesting to see what they decide. I would disagree if they didn't put Richie Grant at free safety. I would disagree. I think in that new system with that coaching staff, I think they can make him into a hell of a playmaker, and he kind of already is in the back end. So I would strongly disagree if they went another way, but they may. But that's my pick there for the Falcons. Next up, we got the Broncos quarterback, obviously, Drew Lock versus Teddy Bridgewater. You could say they brought in Bridgewater for a reason. You could say this team is pretty damn built. It's a pretty well-rounded team. They got talent. The defense can win games alone. We see that guy that's going to get the job done, be more of a game manager, not blow the game away. That all sides towards Teddy Bridgewater, but is that really going to win them a Super Bowl? And I'm not saying Drew Lock is, but I think they believe in Drew Lock, that he can progress, take care of the ball a little better, but he has that dagger play, that big play ability. I think it's got to be Drew Lock. I'd be surprised if Drew Lock's not starting week one. And I wouldn't necessarily disagree with it. Honestly, I just think it's going to be him. I think it's going to be him week one, and I really won't say that he'll start every single game this year, but I'd be surprised if it wasn't Lock. I'm pretty confident in that right now, at least. The Raiders, wide receiver 1. Who's going to be that number 1 receiver? It actually becomes interesting. And I put wide receiver 1 here because I think Renfrow is kind of locked in as the slot. Could end up being their best receiver. If you want to consider Darren Waller, almost like a receiver, then he's their best guy. But, Renfrow's going to play in the slot. Bryan Edwards was pretty solid. I like that draft pick. Likely not going to get that job, though, but definitely in the running. So it's really between John Brown and Henry Ruggs here. And they brought in John Brown because he's almost I don't want to say clone, but almost a very, very similar style of player as Nelson Aguilar, who was really their number 1 receiver, really worked with that offense. So they want that style of player. And Henry Ruggs could be that style of player, as well. I mean, they could put him in the slot at times too, but he also could be that style of player. Again, John Brown feels like that Aguilar guy, so it really could be him. I'm going to go Ruggs. And they believe in him. I think a big step up here the second year, so I think he's their guy, is their main receiver there on the outside. So I'll roll with him, but definitely an interesting one to watch out for. Chargers next, receiver 3 becomes very interesting, and this really almost could be receiver 2 because Mike Williams really isn't set at receiver 2. But most people would predict that. Keenan Allen is receiver 1. Mike Williams, receiver 2. Receiver 3, Jalen Guyton got their most snaps at the receiver position last year, so that is interesting. Keenan Allen missing a couple games at the end, played a part in that. When they bring in Josh Palmer, new staff, so Guyton getting all those snaps, really doesn't matter all that much. I know he was connecting with Justin Herbert was connecting with him, obviously. New staff felt like they needed a receiver. They draft Josh Palmer, who, again, if you guys followed us, I love the fit. He's a deep ball specialist. I think he fits Justin Herbert ball perfectly. And they have Tyrone Johnson, who was kind of sneaky for them as well. But to me, it's between Guyton and Palmer. And like I said, any of these guys could really actually be the receiver too, because Mike Williams isn't really used in every situation, kind of disappears at times. But I think he is one of the better jump ball receivers in football still. So this one is so tough, because they drafted Palmer for a reason. I think he fits tremendously. He is an upside guy. Didn't have a whole lot of production. I think they're looking for kind of future upside. Guyton played a lot of snaps. He was solid, and he had that connection with Justin Herbert. I'm going to go Guyton for those reasons, but Palmer fits so well as well here. But definitely interesting there. But Guyton's a small-name guy to watch out for sure. And Palmer's a rookie that could be kind of sneaky. Next up, we got Chiefs center position becomes interesting. They signed Austin Blythe, who started at center for the Rams, played pretty well last year. Interesting that they didn't bring him back. It was pretty cheap here. And then they draft Creed Humphrey from Oklahoma. And, I think some people would say Blythe because he played pretty well last year. They signed him to start at the time. But I'm going to go Creed Humphrey. I think Blythe was kind of an insurance thing. They end up getting Creed Humphrey, who really fits their scheme. A lot more power running the Chiefs want to do here. Kind of just north and south blocking and running there. So I think Humphrey fits that, and they end up starting him. I'm somewhat confident on that. We'll see who starts week 1. I think he ends up playing most of the snaps there. Next up, 49ers quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance. Kyle Shanahan keeps saying that Garoppolo's the guy. Keeps saying that, but it's not really saying that he's going to start week 1. And then you look at the rest of the team. They bring in a guy like Trey Sermon. They bring in Aaron Banks. It seems like they're gearing towards, more of power blocking schemes, which you design when you have a running quarterback like Trey Lance. So if they're really going for that, style of play right off the bat, it would make sense that Trey Lance is in there right off the bat for fit purposes. And is he maybe the overall talented guy right away? So that would side towards Lance. I'm so back and forth on this one. They keep saying Garoppolo's the guy, but I do think they were open to trading him. But it was for the right price at the same time. This is one I very easily could change my mind on, but I think I'm going to go Garoppolo. I just don't think he's going to – I think they're going to start Garoppolo week 1. I don't think it's going to last long. Trey Lance starts most games this year. I will say that. So definitely one that everyone's watching right now, this quarterback battle. Now, especially that Trey Lance has a deal signed. Cardinals running back Chase Edmonds, James Conner. This one actually becomes interesting. I noticed the fans are just strict on this. Chase Edmonds, he's the running back 1. James Conner running back 2. Definitely understandable. I think that's what it should be, in my opinion. But it becomes interesting because Edmonds, the moments he got opportunities, he looked very good last year, and we're left wondering, why isn't he getting more opportunities? Why isn't he getting the ball more? What's going on? They keep insisting on Drake, and Drake was solid, so that could be why too. They keep insisting on Drake. Could that be the same thing this year? Drake was a little bit of a power runner, physical runner. They bring in James Conner, who's like that. So the early downs, they kind of want to pound the rock. Do you do that with Edmonds? So there's reason to believe James Conner could be the guy for that reason, but I'm kind of banking on going what they should do. They kind of shy away towards that, get a guy that's going to throw the defense off, make a guy that can catch the ball out of the backfield, pretty high level actually. So are they throwing? Are they running to him? It kind of keeps them guessing. So I'm gonna go with Edmonds. I think they should go a little more towards that. They let Drake go for a reason. So. But it's kind of up in the air because they can just continue to if they're going to go with what they were doing last year. James Conner's going to start. He's going to start. So if they're willing to change a little bit, then it'll be Edmonds. So we're going to see. We are going to see. It's definitely, again, I see that a lot. The fans. I think it's more of wanting Edmonds, understandable. But it's a little more up in the air than what people think there, for the reasons I just explained. Next up, Seahawks edge 2. Long list of guys here. Starting at the other edge spot is Carlos Dunlap, who was picking it up at the end of last year. They bring in Aldon Smith, who still has some talent, still has him off the field issues to clear up. They signed Kerry Hyder from the 49ers, a pretty solid year last year. Benson Mayowa, who played a lot of reps for them last year, for the Seahawks that is. Alton Robinson, second-year guy, had some flashy moments, here and there. So could they like him in his second year? And Darrell Taylor, who they drafted pretty high at Tennessee last year, I liked him a lot as well. Athletic pass rusher, was hurt last year. So could we see him? They also have LJ Collier. I noticed that they were doing what I wanted them to do since day one when they drafted him, kind of play him inside a little more. He looked a little better when he did that. I think he fits that a little better. So this could be LJ Collier, though, but I think they kind of use him as a depth piece so they can play him in or out. Makes sense to me. Biggest name here is Alden Smith. What does he have left in the tank? And, off the field issues, they worried about that. Again, they were really, really high on Darrell Taylor. If he's healthy, could they go that route? Definitely a possibility. I think Darrell Taylor I think when it's all said and done this year, he'd probably be if he's healthy, probably be their second best pass rusher after Carlos Dunlap. I think they're going to go Kerry Hyder, though, and they signed him for a reason. I think he was pretty solid last year, showing signs that he actually could be better now than he was. So they go Hyder. Mayowa did get a ton of reps for them last year, so maybe they just feel comfortable, keep rolling with him. So it's really up in the air. At the same time, I think they brought in guys for a reason, not just to stick with the same old stuff. So that'd be a reason to argue against a guy like Mayowa or somebody like that. So I think they go Hyder. Watch out for Darrell Taylor, Alton Robinson, some of those second-year guys, though, for sure. And then the Rams, last one here, receiver 3, because we know they have Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods. They're 2 1s there, 1 and 2 maybe. Receiver 3, they bring in Deshaun Jackson, who fits Matthew Stafford ball. They have Van Jefferson, the second-year guy. And Tutu Atwell, they had to have. Kind of a surprise that they drafted him. They're not super shocking or anything like that, but they made it known they want these style of receivers. He's a deep threat with his speed, but you can get creative underneath. I think they'll use Tutu Atwell more and more as the season goes on. I think starting the year as a receiver 3, though, I think will be more of the all-around balance guy, and that is Van Jefferson, very good route runner. I think really plug and play type of guy there with Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods makes sense. Deshaun Jackson, Tutu Atwell, kind of the home run guys you're not going to use every time. I think it would be Deshaun Jackson if you weren't really concerned about the injuries. I think it would for sure be him, but Van Jefferson, I guess, wanted to argue against that because it wasn't too flashy last year. He was only a rookie, but they brought in a ton of receivers. So are they already they just think they need to get better? They have to get better with Van Jefferson. So that'd be the reason to argue against that. I think he makes sense as kind of a starter, though, all-around balanced guy, going to get open pretty quick, intermediate routes. So it's definitely up in the air, though. So you guys can let me know your thoughts in the comments on who wins these or if you have any other. There's definitely more camp battles. Every team has several. So really looking forward to see how all these unfold. Some of these guys may even be cut because they lose the battle, and that kind of creates a mini free agency, which I always look forward to. And we have you covered for all that breaking news on our Twitter. We have you covered with anything important here on our channel with all of our content, so join us. Smash the like button, subscribe, be much, much appreciated. But that is going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.